Okay, welcome to the deep dive. When we talk about saving money, um, it's easy to think, oh, that's only for people earning loads, right?
Yeah, that's a really common idea, a big misconception, really.
Exactly. Like you need some special financial skill you just don't have. But what if the real key isn't, the amount you make? What if it's really about turning saving into just a solid habit?
Building that muscle.
So that's our mission today, actually. We've gone through a bunch of source material that focuses just on that, like how do you actually build that consistent saving habit step by step? No matter what your income is, we're going to unpack what these sources say is crucial.
And it's so important to do that. Honestly, it's crucial.
Why do you say crucial? What's the big deal about the habit itself?
Well, because building that regular habit, it's more than just watching a number go up in an account somewhere. It gives you genuine security, you know? Real peace of mind, a feeling of control.
Right. That makes sense.
And when it gets automatic, sort of like brushing your teeth or, I don't know, putting on your seatbelt, you just do it. It frees up brain space, honestly, and
Yeah.
just builds resilience for, well, whatever life throws at you.
Okay. Okay. So let's dive in then. What's the very first thing our sources highlight, the absolute starting point? Sounds like it might be surprisingly basic.
It really is. They hammer home this idea. Start incredibly small.
How small are we talking?
Seriously small. Like the sources mentioned beginning with maybe $5 or $10 a week, just tiny amounts.
Wow. Okay. $5. Why is that level, that small start, so important, according to them?
Well, what's interesting is how the sources explain it. The actual dollar amount initially, it's almost beside the point. It's
Yeah.
about breaking inertia, you
Right.
know? Getting started is often the absolute hardest part. So by making that first step, like ridiculously small, you basically remove that barrier.
Oh, gotcha. So it's less about the money and more about just doing it,
Yeah.
building the motion.
Precisely. It's about building the momentum, the routine, making the action itself feel easy, achievable right from the get-go.
Right, right. Building on that consistency then. So, okay, you start small. What's next? Our sources shift from the amount to the when. Is that right? They suggest picking a specific date.
Exactly. A specific recurring date, like maybe the day you get paid or the first of the month or the 15th, whatever works. But the key is making it consistent. Put it on the calendar.
Okay, so anchoring it to a date. How does that help build the habit, practically speaking?
This ties into something else the sources mention a lot, reducing decision fatigue.
Ah, great.
Yeah. If you have to decide every single time when you're going to save, it's too easy to put it off, right?
All right.
Or find an excuse.
Yeah, I can see that.
So by setting that fixed date, you just take that decision off the table. The sources talk about it being like a cue in the habit loop. The date shows up.
Yeah, it triggers the action.
Exactly. It becomes less about finding the willpower in the moment and more about just following a preset plan. Automatic.
Okay, makes sense. There was also a pretty strong recommendation about where this saved money should go, right? Something about a separate bank account.
Yes, definitely. Create a specific separate account just for savings. Don't just leave it sitting in your main checking account.
And that's not just for like neatness or organization. There's a deeper reason.
Oh, yeah. The sources really point to the psychological benefit here. It creates a little bit of, call it friction, or maybe a cost to getting that money back out.
Friction. How so?
Well, if it's right there in your main account, the one you use for everyday spending, it's just too easy to see it and, spend it. Visually, practically, it's available.
Right.
Moving it somewhere separate, maybe in an account that isn't even linked to your main debit card, it forces a pause. The sources talked about how that tiny bit of inconvenience makes you actively choose to dip into savings rather than just doing it impulsively.
Ah, okay. That pause is powerful. Gotcha.
Mhm.
So we've got the mechanics. Start small. Set a date. Separate account. The sources also talked a lot about motivation, didn't they? About having a goal.
Absolutely. A clear goal came up again and again. But it's not just any goal.
What do you mean?
Well, the sources really emphasize that the goal needs to feel compelling, vivid even. It acts as the reward part of the habit loop, even though it's a future reward.
So like picturing the trip or the house down payment.
Exactly. Whether it's travel or that down payment or maybe just an emergency fund, whatever it is, connecting that abstract action of moving, say, $10 to a real, tangible future outcome that gives the saving meaning, purpose, direction.
Yeah, I can see how that would keep you going.
For sure. One source actually cited examples showing people who could clearly visualize their goal. They were much, much more likely to stick with the saving habit long term.
Makes total sense. Okay, and one last really practical tip the sources brought up using tech, reminders.
Yes, leverage technology, set up automatic reminders, use your calendar, use an app, whatever works.
And this just loops back to the main idea.
It really reinforces that core message.
Oh, wait.
Consistency is everything. It's king. The sources were crystal clear that saving small amounts regularly is way more powerful for building the habit and ultimately wealth than trying to save big chunks inconsistently.
Right. Sporadic doesn't build a habit.
Not effectively, no. Reminders help, but even better, as some sources suggested, is setting up automatic transfers. You know, money moves from checking to savings right when you get paid before you even see it.
Pay yourself first, automatically.
Exactly. It makes the habit happen almost without you needing to think about it. Building a system.
Okay. So pulling all this together from our sources, what's the main takeaway here?
I think the core message they really hammered home is that saving. It's not some special talent. It's not just for the rich. It's actually a skill, a learnable skill.
You build it how?
You build it step by step, not through like huge sacrifices, but through these small, consistent, deliberate actions we've been talking about. Exactly the kinds of things the sources detailed.
So connecting this back to you, the listener, every little step you take now matters.
Absolutely. Every single small step, starting small, picking that date, opening the separate account, having that goal in mind, using those reminders or auto transfers, each one is just part of building a routine.
And that routine becomes...
That consistent routine built piece by piece, that's what becomes a really powerful financial habit. And that habit is what gives you invaluable security and honestly real peace of mind for your future.
Okay. So thinking about everything we've just unpacked from these sources, here's something for you to consider. What one really small, consistent step could you commit to taking, maybe starting this week, just to begin building your own saving habit?